Welcome back, everyone. This is the retro round of the Wilson Security Sandown 500, and one person who I'm sure has plenty of advice for the modern day driver, racing royalty Dick Johnson. It's great to welcome him here into the studio. Good to see you, DJ. How are you enjoying retro round?
It's very different. I can't even recognise half the people.
Yeah, sorry about the guy.
What about Davey Crockett?
He hasn't got a gun.
Not that you know of. Seriously, this weekend, it is a great, in terms of the history of this place, and a great thing for the sport, just to have the retro liveries and all the teams with their apparel on. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think, there should be more of this sort of thing, just to sort of break things, take some of the seriousness out of what we're doing. But at the end of the day, once they pull their helmets on and get out there, it's a different story altogether.
Hey, tell me, Dick, actually, one of the questions one of the boys brought up a little bit earlier about, oh, there we go. That's nice. It's great the fans getting into it too.
Absolutely.
They're getting right behind it. But what they were saying about, your advice to some of the young drivers, you got to harden up and go fast. Back when you were driving, and I drove against you, you were seriously hard competitors.
Yeah, we were. That's nothing's changed. It's just that it was done at a different time in different cars.
Yeah.
And although there were, which I think we should have more of today, that there were bigger differences in the cars. Some were stronger in some areas than others, and
but
things
these would
like
have
that.
been harder to drive than.
Well, what we were driving then was a hotted up road car. These cars now are a serious, from the ground up built race car. Yeah.
And fond memories. Actually, I had lunch the other day with Johnny French and Allan Moffat, and John French was talking about those years with you up there. Seriously, the level of intensity was the same then in terms of trying to beat the major opposition, Peter Brock, Allan Moffat, all the others.
Absolutely, and it's sort of, we were probably a little bit different from the rest because we were doing it out of a garage at home. But in saying that, Frenchie was a fantastic partner to have, and he was a real good racer in his day, I tell you. He was, and today the guy has still got every marble he ever had because he's full of jokes the whole time.
Yeah, he's fantastic, isn't he?
Terrific.
Absolutely. Now, there are also great images there with you and John Bow. That was another great era where, you had this car. This was the 1983 car that you crashed coming out of Forest Elbow, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the thing about that was after I got through the trees and I was full on it, like I knew damn well where I was headed.
Yeah.
After it broke the steering off, but when I went through the trees and when the car stopped and I got out, I can't remember anything after that because...
I'm not surprised. How on earth did you survive that? That was seriously bad.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was... at the end of the day, it was good because Brock drove me back. He stopped and picked me up, which was very kind of him.
Out of all the cars you've driven, you've driven so many varied types. You went through the turbocharged era with the Sierras. Have you got a favourite? Is there one that stood out, handling, power, that you just liked over all the rest?
Look, I loved anyone that won a race, to be quite honest, but at the end of the day, the Sierra was an unbelievable car for what it was, and we did a lot of development work here on it, which sort of we ended up with the accolades for it. But the car that really stands out as being the best car that I ever drove, especially at Bathurst, was the 94 car, that EB Falcon.
Okay.
It was one of those cars that didn't matter what you did, you'd never get into trouble with it. You know what it's like when you get a car that you're so confident in, you can do anything with it and it won't bite you.
Well, that really revitalised Dick in that time when at the end of the Sierra time to go to the V8 category, and that Falcon was unbelievable car of the day. I remember following you through the chase and it broke the rear wing and you arrowed off. That was fast.
That was real fun. It certainly got my attention.
Absolutely.
How are the team travelling this weekend, do you think, Dick? I know it's been, I guess everyone's had their head out the window looking at the weather and what the rain might do. How are the boys feeling about heading into the race this afternoon?
I don't think there's a problem. Like we've come a long way in the last few weeks. I think we've made some really good changes to the cars, and I think that they're really starting to show the speed that we should have had at the beginning of the year rather than now. But going into the longer races, I think we got cars that are capable of getting on the podium, and if we can sort of do the right strategies, I think you'll find that that's where we'll be.
Great stuff.
Good to see you here this weekend. I know the excitement for Bathurst certainly starts building here at Sandown. We look forward to seeing you on the mountain as well. Of course, we are celebrating all things retro here at the Sandown 500 this weekend, and it continues on track right now. Neil Crompton and Aaron Noonan.
It does, Jess. We've got some amazing machinery out there at the moment. It's Sandown gold from the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. it's like a new radio station. We've got some cool cars out there, including Aaron Noonan, who joins me, this Holden VN Commodore that was driven by Peter Brock and Larry Perkins in 1991. And I know another couple of blokes that did some mileage the following year as well.
He might just be standing next to me, Neil. And behind the wheel is actually Peter's brother, Phil. So it's great to see Phil here at Sandown. He's behind the wheel, and next to him, there's a lady there as well. That's Melinda Price, the former Castrol Cougar racer who competed in the Sandown 500. You might remember that wild top 10 shootout lap at Bathurst with Brock, sideways off the top of the mountain. That was this very car.
Cool cars, and I had the privilege of driving both these cars in early 1992, and there's Phil at the wheel, Peter's brother, affectionately known as Split Pin because of his enormous height. And in fact, in 1987, if I'm going to really pull the old greybeard stories on here, Split Pin was hanging over the fence when I first started with the Mobile Holden dealer team, cheering me on, trying to get on the podium. We finished 4th that day, and he was hanging over the fence. You couldn't miss him. He was because he was at a horse racing track, he was doing giddy up. Look at this beautiful Jaguar XJS. The sound of this car in 1985 at Bathurst was worth every cent of the admission price to listen to those things come howling down what was then a full-blown Conrod straight, no chase in it. Beautiful sound, remarkable vehicle.
And this, Neil, is the winning Bathurst car from 85. It's the Armand John Goss car. The car owner, Mike Roddy's behind the wheel. And this is worth a lot of money. He still races it in historic Group A touring car racing. This is a replica of the Dick Johnson, Kevin Bartlett Bathurst 83 car. It's actually part of a drive program here at Sandown. You can drive green stuff, which is the same that cannot be said for the original one because it's still crushed at Sims Metal somewhere from the years ago.
Fond memories of these cars, and this is what underpins the foundation of Australian Touring Car Championship racing. What about that beautiful old Holden? The hardtop Falcons, I saw in the dummy grid area, so I was coming back to the commentary box. The Allan Moffat Federation Falcons was down there as well, and in those early days of the endurance race, used to come down here for what was then known as the Hang 10 400.
Oh, you're showing your age now.
Unbelievable, elbow to elbow, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people across the weekend, and a great rivalry between some great drivers. Beautiful machinery.
And this, of course, is a replica of the Allan Moffat 75 Bathurst car. And Allan, 6-time Sandown winner. Peter Brock, 9-time winner. They owned this race in the 70s and the early 80s. No one else got a look in. They were the men to beat when you came to Sandown in September. Look, the Holden EHS4, the Mini Cooper S, the Charger, even John Bowes' old HDT Race of Champions Commodore that he won at Calder in the Australian Grand Prix in a one-make HDT race. It's been put back to its original stickers. That is John Bowes' essentially first touring car.
And what about the Mini? 1966, they were the thing to have.
50 years this year. They finished 1 through to 9 at Bathurst with... ironically enough, it was a Holden that won. It was Bob Holden driving a Mini, though. This, though, if you're a muscle car fan, this is the 4-door A9X Tirana, the ex-Warren Cullen car. Craig Bowring's just finished restoring this car. No vinyl wraps here. Proper sticker job, proper paint job. Looks the part. It is sensational. Raced here in 1977 at Sandown. It's got a T on it because it was the test and training car for the team at Bathurst that year when you could run a test car to log up the miles during practice and save up your race car for the Sunday race. But great era when Ford and Holden went to war. Falcon and Tirana here at Sandown. The big crowds. This grandstand used to go absolutely bonkers for these guys when the fields were not just with the main outright cars, but class cars as well. Amazing era.
Celebrating retro at Sandown this weekend for the Wilson Security Sandown 500. We're loving it, the fans are loving it, and we're counting down to the start of our big race this afternoon. Quick break, back shortly.
Welcome back, everyone. The answer to our year in question, 1981. Everyone is having an absolute ball here at the Retro Round. Now, Mark Scaife and Russell Ingall have gone for a bit of a wander, and I believe Mark Scaife has found a very special guest here who happened to contribute to the wardrobe this morning, Scaife.
Exactly right, Jess. Allan Moffat was very kind enough to bring me a proper, authentic tie. Thank you very much, Alan. You're not wearing a tie today. I usually see you in a tie. You forgot yours. Now, Allan Moffat has had 4 wins at Bathurst, 4 times the Australian Touring Car Champion, but 6 wins here at the Sandown 500. Have you got a favourite?
I always enjoyed working here. Everybody was always quite accommodating. and never had any major accidents. By accidents, I mean whether it was engine or a diff or a transmission. Just living here all my adult life has been quite enjoyable, actually.
So this place is a lot different now in terms of the structure of the event and the way that the circuit's configured. In the older days, it was much faster, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. And you had to be on the job. And to be fair, the crew I had were exceptionally quick on the ball and got me in and out fast enough that I could get those finishes. It was worthwhile, let's put it that way.
So, Alan, this is obviously a precursor race to Bathurst. Bathurst was always the one you had your eye on the prize. 4 wins there, extraordinary times. You won in the 500k format and the 1000k format.
Yes. Well, I should have had 7 wins, but it was the co-drivers on 3 occasions that stripped the clutch out of my car and left me driving around by myself. That left me a little bit sad, but Brocky's the one with the real total. He did it well.
He certainly did with 9 wins. Now, they were beautiful times for you. You were the factory Ford team, you were the factory Mazda team, great memories. But right now, we're standing at the front of the factory Volvo squad in retro livery. Young James qualified 4th, did a really good job yesterday. What are his chances today?
I think he's warmed himself up to the idea that he can apply himself, and if they can just manage not to have to use each other's door handles every time they go into a corner, would be helpful. But yesterday afternoon's shenanigans were getting a little bit on the wild side. But I think now that the boys are going in for 500 miles, they'll be a little bit more with it up here. Keep your eye on the ball and do your job.
You must be very proud of him, because he's obviously, throughout the course of the year, he's really come on, coming from Nissan factory team to the Volvo factory team with Gary Rogers. He's had to apply himself. He's getting faster and faster. He looks very comfortable in the car now.
No, he's happy about that, and congrats to Gary for giving him a go. And I think what everybody's really getting excited about is that he'll be in the 33 car next year, and I think we'll see some big things from him.
I totally agree. He's a young man with a big future. Thank you very much, Alan, for being with us at the Retro Round, a man who's had 6 wins here at the Sandown 500. Now we're going to cross across to a great friend of yours, Larry Perkins and Russell Ingall. Russell Ingall looks a bit more like Davy Crockett today. Go for it, mate.
Yeah, look, thanks. Hey, how good is this, standing next to my old boss and the guy that got me into V8 supercars back in this country, Larry Perkins. Larry, you must have tons of retro gear around. Why don't you bring something out?
Well, I failed, to be honest, and yeah, I don't have much retro gear. I don't know whether Jack's stolen it and got it on eBay or what, but anyway, it's good to see.
Hey, we're standing here at Sandown. Good memories, especially for us. 98, we won this one, but you've had lots of wins here, and with Brocky as well.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was 84, 83 or 84 with Brocky, 92 with Steve Harrington, and 98 with your good self. Peeing with rain all day, and I think we lapped Scafie on the last lap, so I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, well, I think we did, but anyway, we're going to run with that story no matter what, because it sounds good. Yeah, that, mate, how wet was it there? And isn't it ironic? Here we are.
Oh,
here we are.
That is not true.
Did we lap you? Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, all right?
We'll definitely lap him for sure. We'll run with it. 2 laps, I think.
But how ironic we're standing here right now like 98, and it's a wet Sandown, and she's going to be a bit of a hairy race. It's just typical with this place, isn't it?
Oh, it is typical, but that's the challenge. And I was telling someone before, if you can be competitive here and walk away to win, that's great. But it means you're going to be competitive at Bathurst. It was always, yeah, it's all about Sandown, but it's all about Bathurst too.
They were good celebrations, and the thing about it is we're standing in front of the 22 here, and great to have Jack back in the car, and my ad doing an outstanding job, and they're in with half a shot. I mean, James is going well, but Jack's driving so well, great in the wet. Good to see.
Well, of course, it's good to see, and especially with the Holden race team. It's the icon team, and he's fitted in well there, and he's responded to his needs so far, which is great. And him and Courtney get on well, and yeah, I got my fingers crossed. You never know, it could happen.
Hey, look ahead. We got Bathurst as the next big race in this Enduro series. Bathurst was you, Larry Perkins. That was your race, and you taught me about that. You said, hey, it's all about Bathurst, and you taught me how to win that race. very special and a big one coming up. Tell us about what's your best win at Bathurst? What do you regard as your best win out of the many?
Well, hey, how good is it when you got 6 to choose from? You can say which one's the best. I tell you, they're all pretty good, but it's pretty hard to toss the 95 one with yourself when that last to first, when, you know, everyone had naturally written us off after lap 1. To pull that into a win, that's hard to toss that as a memory. And but I've still got another memory of when I didn't win Bathurst and threw one away, 2002 with your good self, when I put it into the fence coming into the pit lane. So it's full of highs and there's a few lows there too.
Yeah, that is the thing about Bathurst. And what do you reckon here, Larry? I mean, you've had a bit of a look around, seen the competition. Who do you reckon is going to be the one to look out for this weekend?
Well, the difference, and every year it's more competitive than ever was. You know, way back in the 60s, you could pick it out of 1 or 2 guys, you know, either Moffat or Brock or something like that. Yeah. But the competition is huge now, and I think you're a pretty brave guy to try to single one team out ahead of the others, and because it's just not the case. And it's about every little part of the team working precisely and who can put them all together, the pit crew and no mistakes from the drivers. Same recipe, but the competition's a lot tougher.
Larry, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to see you. And Jess, this guy standing right next to me is one of the true legends of the sport, and it's great to see him down here at Sandown.
Yeah, it has been a real treat to have some of the biggest legends in Australian touring cars here this weekend at the Retro Round. A big thanks to Allan Moffat, Larry Perkins and Dick Johnson for having a chat with us.